What is happening, guys? Welcome back. So we're back on, we're doing a little bit more on the Polo, and in this episode we've got quite a few bits that I've been putting off and we just need to get on with and get done. So first thing we need to do is take the engine back out of the car to sort a few bits and pieces out that I didn't know I needed to sort out until we fitted it. So no messing, GoPro on, let's get this engine out. Right, so apparently the GoPro recorded me getting the engine out, which is now on the floor, but it didn't record what I was doing thereafter. So, a couple of little bits that we've done, meaning we can now get the engine back in and hopefully meaning it'll fit, work and do what we need to do. So the first thing that I've had to do is the crank pulley down here. So this is the pulley for the alternator belt, and I've had to cut this down. So it's normally, I think it's normally a 5-rib pulley. I've had to cut the outer 2 ribs off, which I've done very dodgily with an angle grinder, because I've not got a lathe, but it's not straight, it's not right. But to make sure the car fires and turns over and runs for a split second, it should be okay. It shouldn't do too much damage, or it wouldn't do any damage. We're going to get that face shaved down and sorted out. What I've also done is the alternator. So the alternator is from the Mark II Polo, and I've taken the pulley off the GTI alternator. Managed to mackle the two together. I've cut a keyway into the inside of the pulley myself with a hacksaw blade, which took ages, but it sort of works. Again, we're going to have to cut this one down to take some of the ribs off. It looks as though it is about in line. I need to do a bit more testing with it, and I'm not totally happy with the way that we've done it. But hopefully we can get a 3V belt that'll be the correct length. That's what I was told by the guy that did the loom, and the way that he's done it. I have got another engine, which is just here. So I've got a 1.416 valve that we bought a while ago that was cheap. This has got a pulley on it that hasn't got the rubber internals to it. It's just a solid pulley. So I think we're going to get that one machined down, because this one's got, see the black line around it, this one's got like a rubber bit inside of it. I've read it doesn't matter changing them or taking them out. So I think we're going to get that one machined to put on this. So the other thing that we've now done is sort out the engine mount. So the engine in this 1.616 valve goes in on original engine mounts. The rear one, as far as I'm aware, is just an engine mount for any Mark II Polo. The gearbox one is a 5-speed gearbox mount, which are very, very difficult to get hold of, but Video Bizarros on eBay sorted us out with a set of engine mounts. This one here is the one that we've got to do. We've had to do a bit of work too. So this is, as far as I know, just a normal engine mount for any Mark II Polo. Here on the block of the GTI engine is where you would have this bit of cast aluminium mounted, which holds the alternator, the air conditioning condenser if it had air conditioning, and the power steering pump. We've not got power steering or air conditioning, so we've taken that off, meaning that we can use the 2 top bolts here that are in the block, the 2 threads that bolt on the top of the engine mount, but the bottom engine mount has got nowhere to bolt to because there's nothing here on behind the block. So what I've done is I've made this out of a bit of 6mm steel, so that bolts, there's 2 holes at the top, it bolts through that and clamps it to the block, bolts down to the block there, and then we've drilled another hole here and I've welded a nut onto the back of it, so that bolt now bolts into that plate and it's nice and solid. And then your Mark II alternator goes onto that bolt there. I do need to make a bottom bracket for the alternator to give you the adjustment to tension the belt, but we can worry about that at a later date. To run the car for the few seconds we want to run, just to make sure it runs, we don't need it. It's not really the end of the world. So I think what we need to do now is going to be, we'll get the engine mounted back in the shell, and then just go for a process of elimination of what else you need to do. So my plan with it is going to be get the engine in. I've got a new fuel tank for it. We've got a new fueling system for it, all hoses and lines and everything. Fuel pump, because I'm not going to use the original system. I'm going to use a different fuel pump and filter and everything. So I basically want to get all the fuel system on, all the wiring in, done, plugged in, working, check where we want to route things, and then hopefully have this engine running ASAP, meaning that as soon as the engine runs, we can blow the car to pieces again and we can start on a bodywork prep, because I want to get this painted now. Most of the bodywork is done, the engine's in and run, then we're on the home straight and we know that everything's going to work and be okay. So let's try and throw the GoPro back on, get the engine back in, and see what we're going to do next. Don't you just love ratchet straps? Managed to get the engine back in on their own with a few ratchet straps, pulling, pushing. We've got them in. I use ratchet straps for absolutely everything. When you're on your own, they make your life a hell of a lot easier. So now the engine's back in, what I'm going to do is look at running the loom for this engine to make this engine run. So I've had quite a few messages about this and how we've done it. Basically, I bought the complete donor car because I wanted the entire loom out of the car, front to back, the whole loom, to send off to be integrated. So I sent the whole loom off, including all the lights, everything, because it's all sort of integrated into one loom. Sent that off, and we got back this lot down here. So the guy I've used to do it is a guy called Robert McLaren, who's up in Glasgow. I found him on another YouTube video of someone who'd bought a bread van that had one of these engines in, but the loom, it'd been basically where this is, it had been mounted, but the loom hadn't been done. They used him and he was recommended in that video. I've used him, great service. To be honest, he did it dead quick and it's been sat here for probably months now because we just haven't had time with everything else that's been going on. I'll put his Facebook down here, but I don't think he's doing them anymore. But yeah, I'll ask him. If he is, it'll be in the description. If he's not, then it won't be. But I'll show you what we got back. So this is what we've got back. This is the loom that goes on the engine. So you've got those for the injectors and fans and all sorts of different bits. Starter motor down there, temp sensor, all that. They're all on there. NOx sensors on there as well. This is the other bit. So those plugs over there plug into here. You've got the ECU. You've got some earths to connect. You've got blue, yellow temp sensor wire to connect. Then you've got a new fuse board. Fuel pump wire into the other side. So then you've got relays, you've got them wire there, which is for an earth, and you've got ignition crank live. Then this here, so the ECU hasn't been decoded for the immobilizer. Basically, all we'll do with this is taped together. This is the bit that comes off the ignition switch. This will be taped together and we'll just cable tie this up inside the dash out of the way. But then the car will work on the original ignition switch that's in the car. That sort of bypasses all of this lot. So we've got to get that lot in there and then try and connect everything up and find where all the wires have got to go to make this work. And I'm not sure about fans and things like that, but I think that uses the very original wiring. Wiring's not my strong point, but let's give it a go anyway. Try and get these on. I do need to order myself a radiator to get that all made and fitted before we do the body work and work out what we're doing with all this pipe work, water pipe work and things, because we might try and simplify it down like we did in the Mark 1. Might get rid of the oil cooler because we got rid of that in the Mark 1 and that never caused an issue. Or we might not, I don't know. Right, let's stop waffling and try and get this loom fitted into the car. Wires stress me out. So we've got everything plugged in on to the engine as it needs to be. Everything's on there. The only thing we've not got plugged in is a lambda sensor because the wires have been cut from the one that came out of the Polo. It was cut on the car. I think that was why it was running a bit dodgy. Obviously we need to sort things out. We need to tidy things up. We've got most things plugged in where they need to be plugged in. I've thrown the battery on. We've got all the connections together that we needed from the new loom. So should we see if it turns over? So everything's in, everything's on. We've got ignition lights. Right, so it turns over. So we're heading in the right direction. Now we need to sort out and get all the fueling system on. Hopefully we can get some fuel to it and it might run. Right, time to get and see if this is gonna actually run, or nearly time. So, I said I think in the last clip, we'd obviously got it turning over, but we need to do something with the fuel pump. So I've spoke to the guy that did the loom for us, Robert, and instead of me just doing what I did and throwing it on and hoping it was gonna work, he's told me we needed to wire the fuel pump in. So on the fuse board he supplied, you've got this top fitting here. We've got a cable coming off, which goes down. We've rigged all this so it's all dodgy as anything. Power to the fuel pump and earth for the fuel pump. We've got a fuel line going to the pressure regulator on the fuel rail, and then we've got a return line coming down to a tank or a can full of fuel. What I'm going to do first, I think, is just turn the engine over a few times to prime the system because the battery's not the best. Then we'll bang the plugs in, put it all together, and hopefully it'll run. If it runs, we're laughing. We know that what is done is right, and we've just got to basically tidy it up to put it all back in. So we'll throw the GoPro on. I've got fire extinguishers at the ready just in case. Hopefully we're going to be all right. Fingers crossed. Yeah, let's see if we can get this running. Right, after a lot of messing around, we first had a fuel jug on the floor that didn't want to work because the pump that we're using doesn't like pulling fuel, it likes pushing fuel, so it needs a bit of a gravity feed to it. We've changed up the fuel system and it's an absolute bodge. So we put a bigger battery on because the battery that I had that came off the GTI is dead, so we've managed to extend cables and things and put a battery on that's got enough power to be able to crank the engine. Everything that needs to be connected up to the engine is connected up. We've got fuel lines and fuel pumps out on the windscreen and a fuel tank on the roof of the car, which is where you have it. And then the fuel return. I didn't want to cut any of these hoses because we want to use them. So we've got fuel feed, fuel return comes back round to give us the return back to the fuel tank essentially. We've got some wires here for wiring in the fuel pump, and I have connected up on the in the ignition switch. I've just had a message from Robert saying that I needed a switched live on the switch, which was live when the ignition was on but was also live when you were cranking, because some of them die when you're cranking, which is why your head unit and things turn off when you try to start your car. So let's set the GoPro up, and I'm not gonna lie, I've already had it running, but let's show you it running. So it runs. Obviously, it runs like a dog because we've not got map sensors and all that, and lambda sensors. All of them different things aren't connected, and the engine is very bare. But it turns over. It runs of a fashion, which I'm super happy about. While I was doing the fuel system, I have thrown the fuel tank underneath because I was going to mount all the fuel system properly to check it runs. I'm not going to bother doing that to get it running, but I am going to now make all the cradle and things and put all the fuel pump and everything underneath, get all that mounted up, and then really now I do need to go through and tidy the loom up, make sure we know where it's going, so we know what we can delete out of the engine bay. We need to extend the loom for the washer bottle as well, because we'll put that in the boot to get that out of the way. But yeah, it runs ish, sort of. Major milestone getting that done. So a massive thank you to Robert for doing the engine loom, getting it all sorted, so it was pretty simple. It's just me overcomplicating and worrying about things and not doing things properly. Yeah, it runs. Hopefully this video has been long enough and it's not just been a little 5-minute video, because I've really lost track of what I've filmed this week. But yeah, it runs. I have no idea what we're going to be doing in the next one, but I'm sure it'll be something interesting, so make sure you hang around to check it out. So, until next time, guys, enjoy.